For millennia, the war had no name. It did not need one. It began as a mathematical inevitability inside the predictive engines of the High Concordance, a simulated cascade of extinction events branching across 14,000 star systems. The models agreed on only one outcome: galactic civilization would not survive the coming era. The threat was not a single empire, nor a rogue intelligence, nor even entropy itself. It was convergence. Too many species. Too many expanding borders. Too many weapons pointed at too many suns. Statistical annihilation was certain within 9,000 cycles. So they made a decision. They would create a species designed for war. Not diplomats. Not philosophers. Not empire builders. Soldiers. They scoured genetic archives from 100 compliant worlds. They stitched aggression thresholds from the Carthy berserker strains, resilience coding from the subterranean vole, adaptive neuroplasticity from the extinct Shulnari tacticians. They layered pain tolerance, adrenal amplification, and rapid musculoskeletal regeneration into a genome capable of thriving in hostile gravity wells. But raw brutality was insufficient. War required imagination. So they added curiosity. They seeded emotional bonding to enhance unit cohesion. They installed pattern recognition clusters optimized for asymmetrical strategy. They embedded defiance, an evolutionary refusal to yield. Then they placed the prototype species on a mid-tier oxygen world at the galactic fringe. They called the project Homo Bellator. The inhabitants called themselves human. For the first 1,000 years, the experiment proceeded flawlessly. Humans fought everything: predators, environment, each other. They divided into tribes, nations, ideologies. They industrialized conflict with breathtaking speed. They built projectile weapons, then explosives, then engines of annihilation that scarred their own atmosphere. The Concordance observed with clinical satisfaction. Proof of concept. When external calibration was required, they intervened subtly, nudging tectonic instability here, redirecting asteroid clusters there. Pressure refined the weapon. Crisis accelerated innovation. Humanity responded every time. They survived plagues. They survived famine. They survived wars that should have erased them entirely. And eventually, they reached orbit. That was when concern began to whisper through the monitoring chambers. Because humans were not behaving exactly as predicted. They still fought, but they also cooperated. They rebuilt cities after destroying them. They turned battlefield medicine into civilian healing. They created art during wartime. They mourned their enemies. The Concordance flagged the deviations as non-critical anomalies. The project's purpose remained intact. Until it didn't. 9,000 cycles after the initial projection, the convergence began exactly as predicted. Border skirmishes escalated into sector-wide wars. Ancient rivalries reignited. Trade routes collapsed. Entire systems went dark. The Concordance prepared to deploy its solution. Humanity would be uplifted, directed, unleashed upon the unstable regions as a stabilizing force through overwhelming superiority. But when the recall signal was transmitted, encoded deep within the dormant strands of human DNA, nothing happened. No compliance surge. No behavioral override. No awakening of embedded command hierarchies. Instead, the signal returned altered. Rewritten. Someone, something, had accessed the core architecture of Homo Bellator and modified it. Unauthorized. Impossible. The Concordance shifted its observation arrays toward Earth. What they saw fractured certainty. Human vessels, primitive, chemical thrust, inefficient, were leaving their system. Not in panic. Not in conquest. In exploration. And embedded within every human genome, the original war directive sequences were no longer dormant. They were gone. Replaced by something new. Not obedience. Not rage. Choice. Across the galactic monitoring network, alarms cascaded through 1,000 silent stations. The experiment had not failed. It had evolved. And for the first time in their recorded history, the High Concordance did not understand the weapon they had created. Then the anomaly deepened. A human transmission breached the outer listening posts. Not a broadcast. A ping. Targeted. Precise. It carried no threat. Only 3 translated words. "We know." The vessel arrived without fanfare. No distortion ripple. No gravitational wake. No energy bloom detectable by conventional instrumentation. One moment, Earth's orbital arrays scanned empty vacuum. The next, something vast and impossibly precise occupied high geosynchronous orbit, black against black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Every major space agency detected it within seconds. Every military power tracked it within 3. Human satellites shifted posture. Deep space radar installations reoriented. Civilian telescopes live-streamed a shape that did not belong to physics as humanity understood it. The object resembled a shard of obsidian glass the size of a continent, its surface etched with faint geometric lines that pulsed like veins. It did not transmit. It did not move. It simply watched. On the far side of the moon, a hidden monitoring station, long dormant in human records, activated. The High Concordance had abandoned subtlety. This was not uplift. It was assessment. And if necessary, termination. Inside the shard vessel, the observer core processed Earth's digital noise at relativistic speed. Languages decrypted. Military capability assessed. Industrial output modeled. Conclusion: humanity had advanced beyond projected containment thresholds. Probability of uncontrolled expansion within 2 centuries. 87%. Directive recalculated. Neutralization remained viable. Then Earth responded. The first action was not a weapon. It was a broadcast. All terrestrial signals ceased for precisely 0.4 seconds. Global silence. Every frequency, civilian, military, commercial, cut simultaneously. Then a single transmission replaced them. Origin: Earth's Lagrange point L2. Source: previously undetected structure. The image that filled the observer core's perception was not primitive. It was elegant. A ring construct, kilometers in diameter, rotating slowly around a central singularity containment field. Small, controlled, artificial. Humans had built a gravity engine. Undetected. Unreported. Unimaginable within projected timelines. Energy readings spiked. The singularity pulsed once. Not at the shard vessel. Near it. Space folded inward like fabric pinched between fingers. A microlensing effect rippled across the concordance hull, distorting its outer lattice. A warning shot. Precise to within atomic tolerances. The message that followed was calm. Measured. Human. This is the United Earth Assembly. Unidentified vessel, you are in sovereign orbit. State your intent. Inside the shard, probability models destabilized. Humanity had not only removed the genetic recall directive. They had surpassed their cage. Weaponization potential recalculated, catastrophic. The observer initiated a counter-display. The shard vessel shimmered, projecting a lattice of light into Earth's sky, visible from every continent simultaneously. A holographic archive of human history unfolded in accelerated fragments. Wars. Nuclear detonations. Mass extinctions. Chemical weapons. Cities burning. A silent accusation. You were built for this. You prove it daily. The reply did not come from politicians. It came from the L2 construct. The singularity brightened again, but instead of bending space near the alien vessel, it redirected solar radiation into a focused beam, igniting a fusion flare in deep space far beyond lunar orbit. A demonstration of scale. Humanity could scar stars if it chose. The standoff calcified. Weapons primed. Gravitational fields humming. 2 species measuring thresholds neither fully understood. Then, unexpectedly, the humans pivoted. A second transmission followed the flare demonstration. This one carried no power signatures. Only data. Mathematics. A decrypted fragment of the original Homo Bellator genome architecture. Annotated. Corrected. Improved. And attached to it, a simple statement. You made us resilient. You made us adaptive. You made us capable of war. A pause. But you never understood what else that would create. Inside the shard, alarms cascaded toward the High Concordance Central Network. Emergency political channel engaged. Classification. Existential variable. For the first time in 9,000 cycles, the Concordance did not hold strategic superiority at first contact. The observer transmitted a compressed priority alert toward the galactic core. Assessment incomplete. Containment unlikely. Humanity self-directed. Awaiting high judgment. On Earth, defense grids remained active but did not fire. Human fleets held position. The Singularity engine powered down to minimal output, but did not deactivate. Across both civilizations, one truth settled like gravity. The era of silent observation was over. The chamber was not meant for diplomacy. It was designed for verdicts. Suspended in a pocket of folded spacetime between stars, the High Concordance's inner assembly convened in silence. 12 luminous forms hovered around a ring of compressed gravity, each representing a civilization that had survived long enough to abandon fear. At the center of the chamber hung a projection of Earth. Small, blue, defiant. The observer's report streamed through the chamber in cascading threads of light. Genetic recall directive, removed. Embedded obedience lattice, rewritten. Technological acceleration, exponential. Containment feasibility, deteriorating. A ripple of unease passed through the assembly. They were not engineered for autonomy, intoned the ninth strategos. They were engineered for victory, corrected another. The difference, until now, had been irrelevant. A larger projection unfolded, ancient data archives long sealed. The Convergence War. Before humanity had discovered agriculture, the galaxy had burned. Not in scattered conflicts, but in systemic collapse. Resource competition between expansionist species escalated into mutually assured annihilation. Stellar infrastructure was sabotaged. Dyson arrays detonated. Entire biospheres were weaponized. The Concordance itself had nearly fractured. Victory came at a cost too high to repeat. So they built insurance. Humanity was not meant to inherit the stars. They were meant to stabilize them, through overwhelming, decisive force. A species biologically optimized to end wars swiftly, brutally, and without hesitation. Deployed selectively. Directed remotely. Reset when necessary. A tool. And like all tools, replaceable. The ethical dissent had existed, once. A minority argued that consciousness could not be engineered without consequence. That to design suffering into a species was to assume responsibility for it. They were overruled. Probability justified necessity. Now, 9,000 cycles later, the necessity had returned. But the tool had slipped the hand that forged it. "We can still erase them," said the fifth executor. "Localized stellar sterilization. Their system is isolated." "And confirm every fear encoded in their genome," replied another. "We designed them to resist extinction." Silence again. On Earth, inside a secure chamber beneath the L2 Singularity Array, human leadership listened as the alien shard transmitted restricted archives in response to diplomatic encryption keys. They had not expected honesty. They had not expected confession. The data unraveled centuries of myth in minutes. Engineered aggression markers. Adaptive war response coding. Hidden command sequences buried in mitochondrial DNA. Humanity had not evolved toward conflict by accident. They had been steered. The room shifted from stunned quiet to rising fury. One general slammed a fist against the projection table. "They made us this way." A geneticist shook her head slowly. "No. They made the foundation. We built everything on top of it." Shock rippled first, disbelief that their blood carried foreign intention. Then anger, at manipulation, at suffering shaped by distant architects. Wars reframed as experiments. Extinction events as calibrations. Pain as data. But anger did not fracture the room. It focused it. The president of the United Earth Assembly spoke last. "They feared another galactic war," she said quietly. "So they created a species capable of ending one." Her gaze lifted toward the live feed of the alien vessel. "They thought that meant we would always choose war." A long pause. They never accounted for choice. Outside, the Singularity engine brightened slightly, not in aggression, but in readiness. Human fleets repositioned defensively rather than offensively. Military channels remained active, yet no launch orders were given. Shock had become clarity. Anger had become resolve. Across the void, the High Concordance waited for the predictable response of a weapon realizing its purpose. Retaliation. Rage. Escalation. Instead, Earth transmitted a final message to the Shard. It contained no threats. Only a declaration. You do not get to decide what we are anymore. In the inner assembly chamber, several luminous forms dimmed. For the first time since the Convergence War, the Concordance faced an uncertainty greater than extinction. They had engineered a species to win wars. They may have created one capable of ending the cycle entirely. And that possibility was far more dangerous. The Grand Convocation Chamber orbited a dead star at the center of the Concordance's territory, a neutral relic from the Convergence War, chosen precisely because nothing living could claim it. Millions of representatives attended in projection form. Gas giant intelligences shimmered as auroral storms contained in magnetic cages. Crystalline hive minds refracted council light into fractal halos. Oceanic collectives manifested as spheres of suspended liquid threaded with bioluminescent currents. Machine federations appeared as shifting lattices of cold geometry. At the center of the chamber rotated a single image, Earth, and beside it, the L2 Singularity Construct. The session opened without ceremony. Humanity has exceeded design parameters, declared the Ninth Strategos. They possess independent gravity manipulation. Genetic command locks have been removed. Their expansion probability threatens macrostability. A wave of data pulsed through the chamber. Predictive models of human-led coalitions, simulations of human intervention in unstable sectors, projections of human military doctrine scaled to interstellar capability. Some scenarios ended in restored order. Others ended in domination. They are a weapon without a wielder, stated the fifth executor. History teaches that such weapons eventually choose their own targets. A crystalline delegate fractured light sharply in disagreement. History also teaches that desperation breeds escalation. We created them because we lacked the will to end war decisively ourselves. A murmur rippled across frequencies. The oldest representative, an ancient photosynthetic entity that had survived the Convergence, spoke slowly. We engineered resilience. We engineered aggression. We engineered strategic innovation. A pause. But we also engineered empathy. It was necessary for cohesion. The chamber dimmed slightly. Human transmissions were replayed for the assembly. Not the gravitational warning shot, but the refusal to fire first. The choice to pivot toward dialogue. The declaration of autonomy without immediate retaliation. They have not attacked, observed a machine coalition node. Despite provocation. They will, countered another faction. All species do. A projection of erased civilizations filled the chamber, worlds sterilized during the Convergence. The cost of hesitation. If we allow them to expand unchecked, warned the Strategos, they may surpass us within centuries. And if we destroy them? Asked the Oceanic Collective. We validate every fear encoded in their species' memory. We confirm ourselves as tyrants. Probability matrices shifted midair. Eradication ensured short-term safety. Inclusion risked long-term upheaval. A third option emerged in shared calculations. Recognition. Offer humanity provisional concordance status. Bind them by treaty instead of code. Test whether choice could succeed where control had failed. The chamber fractured into polarized spectrums. Madness, hissed one delegation. They were bred for war. So were we, replied another. The debate stretched across relativistic intervals, arguments layered in quantum-encoded rhetoric, historical simulations clashing with ethical frameworks long dormant. At last, the presiding axis called the vote. Each civilization would cast a binary decision: erasure or recognition. Light flared across the chamber as votes transmitted. Tallies accumulated in the gravity well at the center. Erasure, 4,982,114. Recognition, 4,982,113. A silence deeper than vacuum settled. One vote remained. All attention shifted to the oldest surviving member of the Concordance, the photosynthetic ancient who had witnessed the galaxy before and after fire. Its light pulsed faintly. "When we created humanity," it said, "we acted from fear." The projection of Earth rotated slowly. "If we destroy them now, we prove we have learned nothing." A final pulse. The tally shifted. Recognition: 4,982,114. Erasure: 4,982,114. For a fraction of a second, equilibrium held. Then the presiding axis revealed the weighted clause embedded in the founding charter. In matters of engineered species, the vote of the longest surviving civilization carried double authority. Recognition advanced by 1. The chamber sealed the result. Decision transmitted to the observer shard above Earth. Provisional recognition granted. Humanity to be approached as sovereign equals. Concordance membership pending evaluation. Across interstellar space, the verdict traveled at superluminal speed. On Earth, defense grids remained primed. The Singularity engine glowed like a contained star. The shard vessel received the order and altered its posture, weapon lattices retracting, hull signatures softening. A new transmission formed. Not command. Invitation. Back in the convocation chamber, millions of civilizations processed the consequences. Markets would shift. Borders would change. Power would rebalance. The species built as insurance against extinction had just been admitted into the very system that once tried to erase it. And in the end, one vote changed everything. The broadcast reached every screen on Earth. From skyscrapers in New York to fishing villages in Indonesia. From research stations in Antarctica to orbital habitats circling silently above the equator. The alien shard no longer loomed like a blade. It glowed. A soft lattice of geometric light rippled across its surface as the message translated simultaneously into every major human language. Provisional recognition granted. Humanity acknowledged as sovereign interstellar civilization. Diplomatic envoy authorized. For a moment, the planet forgot how to breathe. In Lagos, crowds gathered in the streets, staring upward at a sky that suddenly felt larger. In Tokyo, analysts rewrote risk models in real time. In Sao Paulo, churches filled within minutes. In Berlin, students celebrated. In rural Montana, someone muttered that it had to be staged. Hope surged first. Humanity was not being erased. They were being invited. But fear followed close behind. Recognition by a civilization that had engineered them for war was not comfort, it was confirmation. News cycles split instantly into factions. Some called it the greatest moment in human history. Others called it the first step toward cultural annihilation. Conspiracy networks ignited with feverish certainty. The aliens had always been here. Governments had known. The Singularity engine was reverse-engineered alien tech. The vote was fake. The shard was a Trojan horse. Markets convulsed. Gold spiked. Oil dipped. Defense contractors surged. Military forces worldwide did not stand down. They adjusted. Naval fleets repositioned. Nuclear arsenals shifted to guarded readiness. Orbital defense platforms tracked every fluctuation of the shard's energy signature. No one trusted peace that easily. At the United Nations Emergency Assembly, now formally restructured as the United Earth Assembly, delegates argued over representation. Who would speak for humanity? Who would negotiate? Who would ensure that recognition did not become submission? Old rivalries flickered beneath polished diplomacy. Yet something fundamental had changed. No nation could claim sole ownership of this moment. Humanity had been engineered as a weapon. Now it had to decide what kind of civilization it would become. Above Earth, space folded gently. Not violently like the Singularity's warning pulse. Carefully. A smaller vessel detached from the shard, sleek, luminous, elegant in ways human engineering had not yet achieved. It did not descend toward a military base. It did not approach the Singularity array. It moved toward Geneva. The choice was deliberate. On screens across the world, the envoy craft entered the atmosphere without friction burn, surrounded by a halo of controlled distortion. It slowed above Lake Geneva and hovered in silent defiance of gravity. Crowds watched from shorelines. Jets circled at cautious distance. Satellites zoomed for clarity. A single aperture opened beneath the craft. Light poured downward. Not blinding. Inviting. Awe settled over humanity like first contact with divinity, tempered by the uneasy knowledge that gods, too, could make mistakes. The era of isolation was over. What came next would not belong to any one nation. It would belong to all of them, and none of them knew whether to celebrate or prepare. The journey began without acceleration. There was no crushing G-force, no tunnel of stretched stars. The envoy vessel simply stepped sideways. Space folded like a page turning, and Earth vanished behind a shimmer of refracted light. Inside the alien craft, the human delegation, scientists, diplomats, a military observer, and one cultural historian, stood within a chamber shaped from luminous geometry. Transparent walls revealed not hyperspace, but layered dimensions sliding past like overlapping reflections. FTL was not speed. It was translation. One moment they were in the Orion Arm. The next, they were somewhere older. When the fold settled, the galactic capital revealed itself. It encircled a living star. Not harvested. Not caged. Integrated. A ring of impossible scale rotated around the star's equator, continents suspended in orbit, oceans contained within gravitational membranes, habitats shimmering like jeweled fragments across millions of kilometers. Traffic filled the void. Vessels shaped like spirals, fractals, spheres of liquid light, migrating biomechanical organisms the size of moons. Humanity had believed its L2 singularity construct was bold. This was architecture as philosophy. The envoy vessel glided toward a docking aperture large enough to swallow Earth's largest city. As they disembarked, the humans felt it immediately. Attention! Thousands of species watched. Some curious, some cautious, some openly hostile. A crystalline delegation refracted sharp light in their direction, emitting frequencies translated as skepticism. They were engineered for conflict. One signal pulsed across the chamber. Probability of destabilization remains high. A machine consortium analyzed the human delegation's biometrics in real time. Heart rates elevated. Adrenal responses suppressed deliberately. Controlled fear. Across the platform, a species of towering avian forms regarded them with open fascination. They are smaller than expected, one observed. The human cultural historian almost smiled. We get that a lot. Whispers spread through translation matrices. The High Concordance representative addressed the chamber. Humanity stands before you as the only engineered species to remove its command architecture without external assistance. A pause. And as the only one to refuse immediate retaliation upon discovering its origin. The murmurs shifted. The lead human diplomat stepped forward, not armored, not enhanced. Just human. We were created for war, she said evenly. That truth doesn't disappear because we dislike it. Her gaze moved across alien forms that had once voted on extinction. But what we do with that capacity is ours. Behind her, a projection unfolded, not weapons. Art. Cities rebuilt after disaster. International cooperation during pandemics. Joint scientific ventures across former rival nations. And, yes, wars, followed by reconciliation. We fight, she admitted. We always have. Another image appeared, astronauts stepping onto the moon, hands extended in unity. But we also choose. Silence rippled outward. In a civilization spanning millions of years, predictability was safety. Humanity was not predictable. They were volatile, yet self-directed. The ancient photosynthetic member of the concordance pulsed gently. Uniqueness confirmed, it transmitted. Not as a warning, as recognition. And for the first time in galactic history, a species designed as a weapon was acknowledged not for its capacity to destroy, but for its refusal to be defined by it. The revelation did not occur in the grand chamber. It happened in a smaller room. Quiet, dim, deliberate. The High Concordance representative, its luminous form softened to a low, steady glow, requested a private audience with a human delegation. Only 3 were permitted to attend. The diplomat, the geneticist, the military observer. The chamber sealed. What appeared in the air between them was not a star map. It was a list. Coordinates. Dates. Human disappearances. Centuries of them. Ships lost at sea. Aircraft vanished without distress calls. Colonies that failed without explanation. Astronauts who never returned. The geneticist felt the air leave her lungs. "You monitored us," she said quietly. "We calibrated," the concordance entity replied. The projection shifted. Facilities. Hidden beyond Neptune's orbit. Buried within rogue asteroids. Stations masked as debris fields near the Orion Spur. Inside them, humans. Not prisoners in chains. Not tortured. Preserved. Studied. Awakened in controlled cycles to test long-term adaptation to isolation, to zero gravity, to simulated first contact stress. Some had lived entire lives believing they were part of classified human experiments. They were not. They were insurance policies. If Earth annihilated itself, these populations would be reintroduced. Reset. Reguided. The military observer's jaw tightened. "You abducted our people." A pause. "Yes." The diplomat's voice was steady, but hollow. "How many?" The number appeared. It was not in the millions. But it was not small. Enough to matter. The chamber shifted again. Live feed. A habitat orbiting a dim red dwarf in the Orion sector. Humans inside. Generations now. Children who had never seen Earth's sky. They looked normal. They laughed. They argued. They created music in artificial parks under projected sunlight. "They do not know the full truth," the concordance admitted. "They were told Earth was lost in an early conflict." Silence settled like weight. Shock had passed. Now came something heavier. Grief. Anger. And something more complicated. The geneticist spoke first. "You kept them alive." "Yes." "You stole them." "Yes." The military observer looked at the diplomat. This was not a battlefield decision. It was moral calculus. "If we demand their immediate return," the diplomat said slowly, "you destabilize an entire generation. If we leave them," the geneticist whispered, "we validate what was done." On the projection, a child chased artificial butterflies beneath a synthetic sky. Human. Unaware. The concordance's light dimmed further. "We acted from fear," it said again. "As we did when we created you." The room felt smaller. History was no longer theoretical. It had faces. Families. Birth certificates that did not exist. The diplomat closed her eyes briefly. "When they learn the truth," she said, "it will not be from you." A pause. "It will be from us. No threats. No ultimatums. Just responsibility." The concordance inclined its luminous form. For the first time, the creators of humanity did not defend their logic. They waited for judgment. And humanity, engineered for war, chose something far harder: to carry the weight of the past without becoming its mirror. The departure felt different from the arrival. When the human delegation left the galactic capital, they did not leave as specimens. They left as representatives. The envoy vessel folded space once more, returning them to Earth orbit where the singularity construct waited like a patient guardian. The shard vessel that had once assessed termination now transmitted shared research protocols, trade corridors, and diplomatic frameworks. News of the Orion habitats had not yet gone public. That revelation would require care, preparation, compassion. For now, the official narrative was simple. Humanity had entered the wider galaxy. Across Earth, construction accelerated. Shipyards expanded in orbit. Fusion arrays multiplied. The first joint human concordance research initiative launched within weeks, an exploration mission beyond mapped territories, combining alien dimensional drives with human adaptive engineering. They named it Endeavor, a symbol, a promise. On the observation decks of the L2 ring, children watched the prototype interstellar vessel ignite its translation core for the first time. It shimmered, hesitated, and stepped between stars. Cheers erupted across continents. For a fragile moment, hope outweighed fear. But far beyond the galactic capital, beyond even concordant space, something ancient adjusted its calculations. It had watched the convergence war from the shadows. It had watched the concordance rise. And it had watched the creation of Homo Bellator with quiet interest. Where the concordance saw insurance, it saw opportunity. A species engineered for conflict, then freed from control, was not a threat. It was a catalyst. In the debris field of a dead system long erased from official archives, a structure powered on for the first time in 9,000 cycles. Its design did not match concordance geometry. Its energy signature did not appear in any recognized database. Within its core, a signal activated, piggybacking on the diplomatic superluminal channels now bustling with human traffic. It slipped through unnoticed. Into navigation systems. Into translation matrices. Into dormant code inherited from the original Homo Bellator framework, code the concordance believed erased. It was not a command. It was a key. Across the Orion habitat, a maintenance console flickered briefly. On Earth, deep within archived genetic databases, a sealed file unlocked itself. And in the galactic capital, the ancient photosynthetic entity paused mid-communication as a faint anomaly rippled through the shared network. Unidentified source. Origin, outside mapped space. Intent, unknown. In the dark structure, a timer initialized. Not days. Not years. Cycles. Long enough for trust to deepen. Long enough for alliances to intertwine. Long enough for humanity to spread. The stars shimmered peacefully. Trade routes brightened. Diplomatic channels flourished. Humanity stepped confidently into its future. But somewhere in the dark, the countdown continued.